YouTube, and of course there's the OBS. And I don't see a picture yet on YouTube, but it should be coming in. And there it is. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Coffee, Kegs, and Kriegsspiel, your Sunday dose of Kriegsspiel every Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific. I am Marshall. I am here to talk to you about how I got absolutely crushed and destroyed in a battle put together by none other than my guest, Peter Frere. Peter, say hello.
Yeah, hello everyone. Hello, Marshall. Yeah, good to be here.
Oh my goodness, Peter. That was a heck of a scenario. So we're going to talk about that momentarily. But first, I just want to remind everyone that we do have a Patreon. And I want to invite everybody to support us so that we can continue to create this great content that we have here. And the link should be in the description to the Patreon. So I greatly appreciate that. Now, Peter,
Yeah.
bro, I got crushed. I was just destroyed. Like, oh my goodness. But before we get into the mechanics of how I was ground between the wheels of the Blue Force, let's talk about the scenario. What goes through your mind when you come up with a scenario?
So when I come up with a scenario, it tends to be based loosely around things that have happened in history.
Hmm.
So I'll pick a particular incident in history, normally a military incident, and base the scenario around that. So in this instance, it was based loosely around the Henry V's Agincourt campaign. Now you're thinking there's nothing like Henry V's Agincourt campaign, but hear me out. Essentially, the red forces are the British or English forces, and the blue forces are the French forces, and the Brits are on the inside the in the French countryside, and they're essentially going around uh, raising towns and villages, making the local population feel like the French nobility can't protect them, and therefore why not choose the English king over their current French king?
Hmm.
Uh, so that's essentially what's happened, and
But this
that's
is not a
kind
medieval.
of the feel.
This was not a medieval
No,
scenario, though,
it's
right?
not.
Okay.
No, this is Napoleonic,
Hmm.
or use at least Napoleonic figures, strategies. So yeah, essentially, the situation was that the Red Army had gone out the day before and razed a few towns and villages, and it rained heavily. And then those Red forces basically hunkered down for the early evening and night time, and kind of lost track of each other to a certain degree. And the Blue forces knew, roughly speaking, where the Red forces were, because
Mm.
the villagers are rather disgruntled and they've reported back to the Blue forces and told them where they were. So they had the upper hand, um, and they also had the option of sending a force through the night along some good roads that are off map, either to the north or to the west. So they had an option of taking one of their divisions that way, and they I guess they surmised that they would pincer one particular division that was stranded on its own initially, and that would be yours, Marshall.
Mm.
And yeah, that was the initial. That's the understanding of the scenario and the initial plans of the Red forces.
So,
So,
so
Blue forces. Sorry.
to be clear, then the scenario was not, "Hey, Marshall is playing. Let's really crush him," right?
Well, I didn't know who you were going to be. You could have been the main guy all the way in the back, nice and safe, or the other division in the south. I mean, you went for that one in the middle there.
Yeah, I did. I did.
My yeah. So my initial perception of what the Reds might do, as soon as they weren't 100% sure where everyone or their friendlies were, was to try and coalesce in a central area,
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So that you would report back to your commander, and the other division commander would report back, and then he would be able to report back to you, telling you where he was and where we'd like to meet, and then I thought you might all just meet up somewhere and then plan from there. But it didn't turn out that way, actually. So,
No,
but
no.
that's where you come in, on that, so you can explain yourself why
Yes,
why things
yes.
happen, I guess.
I certainly will. And real quick, I want to say hello to George and Achilles who are here. No, we're not talking about the Bull Run battle. We're talking about the Saturday battle. I couldn't get a hold of Carter this morning. Nonetheless, uh, Peter is here, and Peter is. This is the one that interests me. Although I do want to talk to Carter at some point. Um, but yeah, so this is where I made an off the rails decision. I said, hey, let's go down here like this. I know the enemy is in this fortification. Maybe if I go down here, I'll at least be in contact with him and I'll be able to report back what I see and what's going on. But I wanted to establish contact with the enemy. What I didn't want to do was meander around the countryside without knowing where the baddies were. I did not want to do that. I wanted to do something that would actually aid the team. So my logic was if I go forward and I search out the enemy and at least make contact with him, that would be beneficial. And it would also have the effect of throwing a wrench in his plans because he probably assumes we're going to consolidate somewhere in the middle. That's what he expects us to do. And if all of a sudden we appear on his flank or somewhere nearby him, he'll have to start reacting to us, which puts us inside what we call the OODA loop, right? Which is the logic of decision making. And if we get inside of that OODA loop, then we're the ones dictating the pace and nature of battle. And then, of course, I simply relied on prayer and good thoughts in the hopes that my allies would catch up to me quickly enough in case I got overwhelmed. And what I ended up doing was I think I got like right about. Let me see if I can erase my little marks here. I tell you, tabletop and erasers don't get along. There we go. And what I ended up doing was I got about here, right about here,
Oh,
and,
about
and I
halfway
made and I
to where
made contact with him coming up this way or something. And so that's where the battle essentially began because I was like, okay, well, he's coming my way. I'm going to have to form a line. So I immediately formed a line, like right around here. I formed some kind of a line there and was prepared to defend. So I can play with pieces here if I want, I suppose. I can't remember my exact disposition, but I do remember I formed into a line. And the fact that I can't remember what my precise disposition was should really illustrate for you how some commanders' after action reports can always be questionable. There's always this, did they get their own report right? That's why when you study history, you learn, oh my gosh, it's just a mess. I think I had artillery here, and I think I ran into a grand battery. He had a whole battery of guns somewhere over here and just started plugging away at me. That was my first problem. He had more artillery than I had. And then the second problem was he had cavalry. He had heavy cavalry over here as well. So that was a problem. I don't remember the exact positioning and you can correct me if you like, Peter, if you remember better than
okay.
I do.
So what I would say is when you initially made that forward move, which is perfectly fine, I felt, oh, we might actually see a player actually completely taken out of the game. You know, we've
Wow.
never seen it before
You were thinking
because
about me, huh? getting taken out.
I felt sorry for you, but there was the wheels were turning, and there was something I could do to help you, basically. Um, so, but, like I said, the Blues' strategy was actually to defeat the division that was in Breezer.
Which is me.
Um, so, so
Oh
you,
no.
yeah. So the whole idea was for Yan, who was in the north, to actually rush down and essentially just cut off your retreat,
Hmm.
essentially. And obviously they had heavy cavalry, they had the Grand Battery, they had another division exactly the same as yours. So there was good. They had a plan to go 3 against 1 on you,
Mm.
um, and then to deal with whatever else was left after that. So
Mm.
yeah, there was a time when I was a little bit worried that you might suffer that kind of level of defeat and
Mm.
ignominy. So, but it didn't happen quite like that because you stayed in maybe 1 turn more than I thought you might do, but then you got out of there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I began to
so
realize the danger when I had units coming in over here as well.
yeah,
And the problem was the reason why I couldn't just get out of there was this cavalry that was here. He had this cavalry,
yes,
and let me pull these guys over here, but he had this cavalry right here. Oop, there we go. And it was over here on my flank. And I knew that if I started to withdraw, he would simply send in the cavalry. And my artillery was getting smashed by the Grand Battery. I don't think I'm using the horse artillery to illustrate, although I think it was foot artillery that was smashing me. But I was losing a battery to the counter battery fire. I was trying to fire on his cavalry because I recognized them as the greater threat to my existence. And I realized, well, I have to get out of here, but I can't do it without preventing this cavalry, discouraging this cavalry from charging. So I had one brigade in reserve, and I sent them forward to screen the retreat. And once I had them in position to screen, then I was able to begin my retreat. Oop, I tell you, tabletop is being silly today. Here we go. And that's what I began to do. And of course, that was itself costly because the cavalry did come in. And I think there was at least one clash between the infantry and the cavalry. Um, and my plan, of course, was to retreat to some good ground. And only after I was all the way up here did I start looking around and think, well, where's some good ground? Where's some defensive ground? It's flat. It's like this gentle rolling countryside. It is really flat. And I finally identified what I call Hill 775 back here. And I decided I'm going to defend on that hill. So I began to order my units. Actually, it was more like this was the direct route for them. North of Briza, and that's what we began to do. And then, as I was doing that, my allied forces started to appear. They were coming this way, and the message that I got, at least I think he was coming this way, was I am coming here, you go here. And I was like, I really wanted that good ground, but knowing, of course, that I have this unit coming in on my what's going to be my right, I went ahead and yielded that ground, and I amended my order to go this way. And that's what I did. Real quick, I want to say hi to Shadowcat 6 Lives. Good to see you. Welcome. Nice to see you here, and feel free to ask any questions in the chat. So that's where I was about mid game, early to early mid game.
yeah. I know you was questioning why your units were not recovering quick enough.
Yeah.
My understanding of that was that your supply, your baggage train was actually up on the other side of Rosnitz.
Yes, it was.
So there was quite a bit of distance for those broken troops to actually get there. I think they would have actually started to recover in and around that turn that we actually ended. But it was more the distance that those broken troops had to travel that was the reason why they were not being recirculated into your battle plans at
Yeah.
that time.
At a certain point, this cavalry attacked and was repulsed, but they inflicted some damage on. I think two of these units were pretty seriously disrupted, and I basically gave the order for everybody to just book it out of there. Once the cavalry was repulsed, it was essentially run back and get on this line. And that was my next order. And yeah, I was like, why aren't these units recovering? They've been back there. They've had a chance to rest, and that was troubling me because I needed them on this line. And I don't know that this was the
Yeah.
exact line. I can't remember the exact line. I think it was more like this is where we
This
ended
is the
up.
thing. You and Halloween kind of got mixed up together
Yeah.
a little bit. There was actually a lot of symmetry between both forces, even though the Blues were situated the way they were, and you were situated in this kind of spread out, uh, unknown position. There was a lot of similarities. So put you in the Yan camp, as in experienced commanders that happened to get uh, bashed on the flanks with the heavy cavalry and the artillery, and lost a lot of men from that. So essentially trapped. You both got trapped to a certain degree, though you both managed to extricate. Though Jan didn't extricate himself, Lord Hugs actually came to his rescue and saved him, essentially. Um, uh, yes, so Lord Hugs with his heavy cavalry and the artillery, smashed the flank, and as did Mackay with his forces. The only difference was that Mackay went in slightly before Lord Hugs in the northern part, which meant that he got hit in the rear rather than just facing off against Lord Hugs' cavalry. So it was just a timing thing there. And then Halloween and Imp. I think Halloween seemed like he knew a lot about what he was doing, but he was being quite cautious as well. He could have possibly got up to you quicker, maybe half an hour before he actually did, but he was taking his time. He was also moving his brigades around rather than following a direct one line. They were kind of moving around on different roads, and we did kind of put a little bit of a delay stamp on some of the movements that he was doing because of that. So he was delayed.
Yeah, I remember we got mixed up where it wasn't clear to me whose units were which even. And I know he had a unit out here on the flank that I asked him to send in because I think they had artillery over here that was firing in on the flank, and it was kind of not in position to defend against a charge. And yeah, I wish he had come up earlier. I was like, where is he? Where is he? Where is he?
Yeah.
And
but that's the thing. It did exactly the same thing, though possibly not in such a controlled way as Halloween. Halloween seemed to know what he was doing, but Imp essentially deployed his forces in front of you initially, and then essentially just marched up in line across the open fields, which, as we work out, they just moved that much slower in that time. So he himself could have been in there 30 minutes before he actually did as well. So, like I said, there was a lot of symmetry.
Yeah, there was
in the battle itself. I think the Red forces did really well, but for the fact that you were so spread out and you only really knew where the the main guy was, the main red guy was,
Yeah.
McKay.
And then at the end of the battle, I basically got smashed. My force was rendered almost entirely ineffective because it was being hit by probably three different forces. We were doing okay on the flanks, as I understand, but the center, which I was responsible for holding, was starting to really give way. And I think the consolation prize was that we were really dishing a lot of casualties out to them as well. Like they suffered
Mm.
pretty mightily at the end of the battle. They had a lot of dead on the field too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, Jan's lost as many men as you have probably in that engagement.
Hmm.
In everything that was on the other side of, I think it was uh, Restar, no, Sweaty. I think he had a brigade and his artillery on the other side of Sweaty there, and they got ripped apart um,
Hmm.
on that side. And then, like I said, McKay came through thinking it was going to be easy pickings. He almost took a baggage train as well, but it just got out of his grasp. And then he smashed into the back of Jan. But again, strange thing when I saw Lord Hugs retreating from the southern flank. I was wondering what he was doing. So I thought he could possibly press that, but obviously he's maybe thinking there was other forces there that he can deal with. So he went back and then he went round the north. And just as he did that, McKay went in, and then it was just a simple thing of him going in on McKay
Hmm.
there. So that yeah, it was. I know you don't. Well, you say that the fighting isn't the main bit. The movement
Hmm.
is the main bit, and there was a lot of fighting, but there was a lot also some key movements in this battle as well.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot
So
of a lot of times to speed up the games, players have suggested why don't we start with the units already in contact, or actually do a pitched battle where everything's already lined up and you
mm,
just go at it. And for me, that's actually to me the battle's kind of like the last part. It's not even hardly worth doing. And in fact, what people might realize is we actually end a lot of battles once we think we have an outcome. We don't play to the bitter end. Very rare that we play to the bitter
mm,
end of a battle because I think again the essence of Kriegsspiel is locating the enemy, getting to the battle, formulating a plan, and then trying to execute that plan while the enemy's trying to do the same thing to you. Once the battle is joined, to me that's almost a sideshow. That's almost just
yeah,
for whatever. Um, but I really think the true essence of Kriegsspiel is that first half of the game where you're maneuvering around and you're trying to figure everything out and you're trying to formulate a plan, you're trying to coordinate, and then you're trying to execute it. And that's the part that I enjoy. And I learned, that it can be pretty hazardous to go in on your own. You probably don't want to go full Rambo or Chuck Norris or Bruce Willis there. You probably instead want to wait for that backup to arrive because that created a lot of problems for me. I knew where the enemy was. I walked up, I poked him, and well, I
mm.
paid a pretty steep price for that. And,
Yeah. Well,
you know,
you already alluded to it. That you didn't have any defensive terrain near you, so you would have probably surmised there might have been a larger force coming out of there, seeing as
mhm.
that was the only place I told you they would be coming off. And so yeah, so it's like you say, you learn some things there. So
Yep, sure do.
uh,
Sure do. All right, let's see here.
but
Halloween
yes,
is on and McKay is on. So Halloween says, I wasn't cautious. I didn't have any information to attack. And that makes sense, right? If you don't know where the enemy is, you can't order an attack or a hustle, right? Uh,
yeah,
and then and then he said when I went to get information, that ended up being a turn delay to my attack. Probably because he was up there with me, he couldn't command his troops. Therefore, he has to command by courier, which does take, it does implement a delay. Halloween adds, my assumption was that Marshall would pull back into Rosnitz, and that didn't end up happening, so my troops ended up too far back. And yeah, I wanted to pull back, but I couldn't because of that dang cavalry, as Kevin points out, pesky blue cav, and that's exactly correct. He said half the battle was locating you guys. So
And
there
that
you
was
have
what
it.
I was hoping for. I was hoping that there was going to be some confusion and
Hmm.
second guessing from the red team, um, to try and work out where their allies were,
Hmm.
uh, and because the Blues knew where each other were, and they even knew where you guys were, and you just knew that they were coming from one location. You weren't even aware that they were coming from another location as well. So I did kind of stack it against the Reds
Yeah.
on this one, but again, you came out of it really. Yeah, you competed essentially.
Yeah,
So
we gave as good as we
I,
got, and we weren't
you
completely
gave as good as you
smashed.
got.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So
So,
no, I was very happy because you know what it's like. You put these scenarios together, and with the hope that it's going to be an enjoyable and entertaining uh, scenario for everyone. But you can never be too sure. But how many
right.
times have we played a battle and just one guy's just gone on a merry march for 4 hours basically and never contacted anybody?
Yeah, that's
Um,
happened. That happens. And sometimes you need a
uh,
guy to wait in reserve, and it's really, really rough because you want the guy to play, but you need to maintain that reserve because you don't know what's happening. And that's a really tough part, especially when you command a large body of forces in a Kriegsspiel. You have that one player who ends up being stuck in reserve, and for half the battle, or maybe almost the whole battle, they just really don't see any action. And you really want to just apologize to that guy because they gave you their entire Saturday of attention, and you had nothing to do with them. But if you put them in just to put them in the game, you could actually end up without your reserve or some other problem. So it is tough, and sometimes you are that guy, and you just kind of have to understand. But it kind of balances out. You play enough, you'll see plenty of action, and you'll get those battles where you hang back and don't do anything. But then you get those battles where you're the general sickles of the whole group, and you're foolishly moving up, poking the enemy with a stick, and of course, you brought a stick to a gunfight, and well, there you have it. I didn't have cavalry, I didn't have enough artillery, and well,
yeah, yeah.
there you
I
have it.
felt, yeah, no, I felt sure that that was going to be a really difficult. And then there was kind of a race going on between McKay and Yan, and I could see Yan was going to get there maybe one, maybe two turns before McKay. Um, and I was kind of just waiting to see how that turned out. I knew it was going to happen,
Mm,
but it is the anticipation and that kind of thing to
there.
see it. And
Well, in the end,
yeah,
you called it for the red as a tactical victory for the red. Do you still agree with that assessment?
um, I think what I would say is it's kind of a victory for the Reds on that basis because they had more things stacked against them. So the fact they were where
Mm-hmm.
they were at the end of the battle, despite all of the disadvantages the Reds had, it's maybe not a victory as such, but like a moral victory, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you were literally burning the towns and villages, it seems bizarre, but from a battle perspective, you had the moral victory of having the disadvantages, but staying in and making the fight relatively equal. I think, as regards to the overall battle, the Blues probably edged it, just on the amount of damage that they were able to do to the Reds. But it was close. It
Yes, it
was
was.
close.
Yeah, we gave him a good fight
So
for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, all
So
right.
no, I was happy with that.
Yeah, me too. And Achilles is quoting Milton. He also serves who stands and waits. That's great, Achilles. Awesome. Okay, well, Peter, I want to thank you for organizing this Saturday battle and doing such a great job running it and everything. It was a fresh experience for myself and a lot of players, and I enjoyed the problem. I enjoyed trying to solve the problem of how the heck do I get out of the mess I created while having enemy cavalry coming in to attack me. Having to screen and basically choose who the sacrificial rear guard was going to be. That was a tough decision to do that. I could imagine someone having to do that in real life.
It
And
was necessary, though, wasn't it? It was necessary in that instance
yeah, it
to
was.
sacrifice one of your brigades.
Yeah. So, and actually, they didn't do as badly as I thought they would do. They fared a little better, and so I was kind of proud of them. So there you have it. So
Yeah,
Kriegsspiel moments. Well, everybody, I want to thank
yeah,
you all for tuning in to Coffee Kegs and Kriegsspiel. I want to encourage you to join our Discord. You can find that link on kriegspiel.org. Go to our website. You will see our Discord link. I can pull it up real quick here. Let's see here. Just come on in here though, and when it loads, I don't know why my internet's so slow today. Here we are. But you go to creekspill.org, you click Discord, and you'll go right to our Discord channel, and you will see. Well, this here is. Yeah, but anyway, you'll be able to join our Discord and check out all the cool stuff that we have going on in here. So absolutely do that. And of course, if you do like us and you want to support us in everything that we're doing, please join our Patreon. It's just $5, and it will provide us with all kinds of support. And you do get exclusive content. I am doing exclusive content now that only subscribers can view. So definitely check that out. Okay. Well, thank you everyone, and I look forward to seeing you